Hi everyone, it's Jordan again, and the first thing I want to do is give you guys a good update on my grandmother, Granny. She is doing much better. She's out of the ICU and in a regular hospital room now. She still has a long way to go and a lot to fight through, but she is definitely much better, and we are so grateful. So thank you so much to all of you who were praying for her, all of you who reached out to me and shared your love and support. It really meant the world to me and to my whole family. So thank you so much for your prayers, and we are so grateful for the miracles that we've seen God do along this journey, and so grateful to report that things are moving in a positive direction. So thank you guys so much for that. Okay, now on to our message for today. Do you ever struggle with the what ifs that come with life? I know that I do, and that's probably why this message really hit home for me. So if you do, this is probably for you as well. This is a message that my dad shared with me recently, and it's honestly kind of going to end up being like our word comparison series, which we did a little while back, remember, where we would take two words and we would just kind of compare and contrast them, just look at them and say they look kind of similar, but they're actually very different, and which way does God want us to go with this? What way does God want us to be moving toward? As Christians, what should we be focusing on and moving toward? So for today, we are going to work on what it would look like if we moved away from what if and toward even if. I know that doesn't make much sense right now, but I'll explain it more and hopefully it'll make sense as we go. The context my dad heard this story in was the context of the book of Daniel with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Now, I know we've talked about this story before, that the king at this time was asking these three to bow down and worship him. So in other words, basically deny God, not worship God, but worship this human king. And the three said, no, we're not going to do that. We worship the one true God alone. We are not going to worship you. And so the king was like, okay, I don't think you're fully understanding what I'm saying here. Either you bow down and worship me, the king, or I will throw you into this fiery furnace. So basically, worship me or I'm going to kill you in a pretty horrific way. Well, still, the three said, no, we are not going to. And what their response was is where we're going to focus today. And the amount of faith that they had is amazing. Look at this in Daniel 3:17-18. When they're being faced with, hey, either worship the king or get thrown into this fiery burning furnace, they say, if we are thrown into the blazing furnace, the God that we serve is able to save us. Now, the sentence I would have said right after that is yes, but what if he chooses not to? I know God has the power to do it, but what if he chooses not to? But look what they said here. Instead of saying that, instead of saying what I would say, they said, but even if he doesn't, we will never serve your gods. So they said, even if he doesn't, not what if he doesn't, but even if he doesn't. And the rest of that story, for those of you who might not know, is that God did perform a miracle, and he did deliver them completely unscathed out of that furnace that they got thrown into. So what is your what if right now? What are the what if fears and thoughts that you have in your mind, in your personal life and circumstances? I mean, I'll tell you what it is for me, and I think it won't come as a surprise to anybody because I've talked about it before. Most of them have to do with my health. My lung transplant that I've had. My health is sometimes very uncertain, and it's very easy for me to say, okay, things are okay now, but what if they start going downhill? What if I lose more lung function? What if things start getting bad again and I can't stop them and I can't bring them back up? What if something like that happens? But how do I shift? How do I start going even if? Even if my lung function goes down, even if I can't regain any of it, even if I can't stop my health from slipping, let's say. So what's the rest of that sentence, first of all? Even if it happens. Okay, I get, you're probably saying, I get we switch from what if to even if, but even if, then what? Then what are we left with? Well, I came up with a couple of responses to that depending on what the scenario is, but what I hold on to is, even if that bad thing happens, Jesus is still the same. God is still the same. I still get to hold on to all the same promises of His that I got to hold on to when things were going well. So even if my health starts slipping, I know that God is still faithful. Even if I can't stop my health from going downhill, I know that God is still in control of that. I know that Jesus is still the same. Something that we talked about a couple weeks ago. Even if this bad thing happens, I know that my heart is secure. Remember Psalm 112, was it? To go back and look now. I think it was Psalm 112. I know that my heart is still secure. Or even if this bad thing happens, even if I get thrown into the fiery furnace, I will still obey God. I will still trust in God. Even if this thing that I'm afraid of happens, I will still trust in God. Because even if I know that God is still the same, and I know that God is still holding on to me, and God is still worthy of that trust, that didn't change, even if this bad thing happens. There are a couple other points that I thought of when I was thinking about this, and actually the first one I can't take credit for. I was reading a devotional about this topic before I came on here, so I won't try to steal the author's credit, but this first point was powerful to me. What if statements only need emotion? Even if statements only need faith. I'm going to read that again. What if statements only need emotion? But even if statements only need faith. So when I'm sitting here and I'm saying, what if my health goes down? What if these bad things happen? What if, this job doesn't work out? What if this relationship breaks up? Etc., etc. There's a lot of what ifs in life, right? You fill in the blank for what you're going through. I am speaking from a place of emotion, most likely my own fear or grief, my own human perspective when I say, what if this happens? But to say even if is shifting from that place of emotion and fear over here to a place of faith. Even if this thing happens, God is still the same. Even if this thing happens, God is still good all the time. Like we talked about last week when we did our tribute vlog to Granny, and we talked about how God is good all the time, even when, or we'll switch it for today, God is good all the time, even if the bad thing happens. Even if it doesn't play out the way I want it to. Even if only needs faith. It takes you out of a place of emotion and brings you into a place of faith in God. The thing that occurred to me, and this is actually my point that I thought of, what if conveys uncertainty, doesn't it? What if conveys unknowns? There's a lot of unknowns around the idea of what if. It conveys fear like we already talked about, but even if conveys security to me. Even if conveys certainty, it conveys a solid ground that we can have no matter what. We still don't know how it's going to play out, right? We still don't know if the bad thing's going to happen or if it's going to work out the right way or the wrong way, or, if that thing's going to happen well or poorly, whatever. We don't know still. But we still have solid ground. We still have security. We still have hope. We still have peace. We still have joy. Why? Because we recognize that whatever those circumstances are, they can't change God. We still have God. And God still got us. And God is still in control. And God's still sovereign over everything, every piece of it. So how can we do that today? Think about your own life. What are the what ifs that you are wrestling with right now and struggling with? And how would your life change if you shifted your way of thinking from what if to even if? To even if your struggle doesn't get better. To even if God chooses not to do that miracle that you know that He can do. To even if my health does continue to go downhill. To even if that relationship isn't restored. Even if that job, even if I do lose that job or I don't get that job. Whatever it is for you. Even if I know that it's okay. The circumstance might be okay. Might not be okay, excuse me. But I know that it's okay because I know that I still have God. Even if everything else falls apart. God is good all the time. I love you guys. Bye.